Hello everyone, we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Streamline Your Quote-to-Cash Process Using Dynamics GP. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us today. There are a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention before we begin. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please either raise your hand and we'll unmute your line or submit them through the GoToWebinar question box. We'll be answering questions throughout the presentation. I'd like to introduce today's speaker. We have Jeff Smith, who is a solutions architect here at Socius. For the past 20 years, Jeff has been creating long-term relationships as a consultant for Socius. With 18 years of experience in Dynamics GP, Jeff's primary responsibilities include enhancing client relationships and developing business opportunities. He specializes in project management, product engineering, and consulting. So Jeff, I believe we're ready to transition over to you to get started.
Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate it. And thanks to everyone on the line for taking some time with us today. Hopefully you'll find it very valuable. Our objective for today is to provide you tips to help you streamline your quote-to-cash process and through that enhance your customer relationships using Microsoft Dynamics GP. I'm going to be covering a number of different modules and a couple of different third-party or ISV products that work in complement to Dynamics GP today. And so hopefully you'll find out that there are a number of different ways that you can really use these tools to make things easier, not only internally for you, but also externally as you face with your clients. So today's agenda, I'm going to first lay out a business workflow that we're going to discuss, and then we'll go through that step by step. We'll talk about solution components. We'll actually do product demonstrations. Really today's, because of the short amount of time and the large amount of data or content we want to go through, we're going to do this through some slides and screenshots. We're going to then talk about the solution workflow, and then at the end just kind of talk about what the benefits that you should expect from using these tools. So really the sales process and the customer prospect to customer process is really a multi-step process, and it can start from with your sales team, maybe working with a new lead or an opportunity. You may be also working with an existing client. At some point or another, if you're selling goods or services, you may also have your warehouse team and your accounting team involved in this process as well. So the workflow that I'm going to talk through is taking the system from a lead. We're going to contact that new lead. We're going to interact with the sales team. The contact or the prospect's going to work with the sales team. If there's interest shown, then we'll create a new opportunity. We're going to walk through the quoting process. We're going to then assume that the customer will accept that quote. We'll create an order from that when they say, yes, this is a great deal, we should do it. And then we'll walk through the process of picking and packing and shipping an order, all the way through the process of sending an invoice and managing our receivables and collections process. So you can see that there's a lot of people in your organization that are involved. There are people outside your organization that are involved. And so that we have solutions that can really make this process less tedious and allow you to track good information. So what I'm going to start off with is just the opportunity. And we're going to talk about creating an opportunity all the way through the process of turning that into a quotation that will either go to a new prospective client or a client that you've worked with in the past. And the product we're talking about here is actually Dynamics CRM. So Dynamics CRM and Dynamics GP can work together in tandem to allow your sales team to interact with your accounting team, so that you can take it all the way from quote all the way through invoice. we have a demonstration environment that we have set up here at Socius that's called Buckeye, and Buckeye actually is an environment where we have sample data, and we can work through scenarios. So in my example, what I'm doing is I'm actually working on an opportunity to sell phone cords. My company sells computer and phone equipment, and we have a new lead that's come in that we're going to track. And one of the things that's really great about the CRM solution is it really allows you to work through your process. So there's a couple things that I wanted to point out on this window. So first of all, you'll notice that there is a timeline here that is your sales process. And this actually can be defined by you to make sure that it fits within your organization's process. So you can see we can go from qualifying, we can set up actual requirements in our qualifying process, such as what is the need, what is the solution, who are the stakeholders involved, are there any competitors, and then we can walk it through a development stage, a proposal stage, and then close that process. And a close doesn't always mean a win. A close can mean that we lost, or we lost to end decision, or it's been put off. But ultimately, CRM is going to allow you to define each of the steps along the way to streamline that process for you. The other thing you're going to notice is that you'll see across the top here we're in the sales area within Dynamics CRM. There's also a service component, and that service component is very robust inside of CRM. But we're going to look at opportunities. So here what we've created is we've created a new opportunity for power cords that ends up totaling $1,200. So I'm going to move on to the next step. You'll notice also from a sales team perspective, we can create views. This happens to be a custom view so that when I log in as a salesperson, I see just my sales opportunities. And so you can see that opportunity I've just created is now part of a list for Alcoa, who's my potential customer. These views, in this case my open opportunities, you can have as many of those as is appropriate, and they can be categorized and broken down so that you're looking at opportunity data the way you'd like to. And as I said before, if you have a sales team and there are multiple members of that sales team, each one can see their own specific opportunities that they're working on. We'll have the ability to define things like estimated close date, estimated revenue, and actually even things like probability or a rating system. And you can determine within your organization what works best there. So oftentimes what happens is you'll have an initial conversation with the prospect, and we do have a way, and I didn't include every screen here, but we do have a way of tracking activities such as phone calls, on-site visits, and etc. But we do also have the ability to allow our sales team to enter proposals or quotes, as you may call them, through the CRM solution. So what I've done is I've created a quote for Alcoa in this case, and this quote is for a total of 10 power cords, totaling $1,200. You can see all the basic information about this individual quote. You'll notice here that I have the ability to print the quote. I have the ability to I have to activate the quote. I can actually even assign this to different members of my sales team. Ultimately, what's going to happen then, from a reporting perspective, if I'm Veronica Queck and I'm a salesperson for Buckeye, I can see a sales dashboard that will allow me to see all of my activities. It will allow me to see any open opportunities that I have within my workspace. I can see any open leads. And CRM does allow us to identify leads separately from opportunities. We have active accounts, your sales pipeline, and what's nice about this is you may remember that I showed you the workflow of different separation of the workflow steps, and your pipeline can actually be broken down that way as well. One of the things that's nice about these dashboards is that a sales manager, for instance, or an executive within the organization can look at these pipelines by individual, but it can also look at it overall so that they can see the overall pipeline for the organization. In this case, I'm logged in as Veronica, and Veronica sees just her opportunities. And so you can see that she has $6 million in qualified prospects, 2 that are in the development process. We have 3 that are in the proposed process, the green, and then 4 that are ready to close. And then lastly, you can put in other graphics such as who are my top customers, my top buyers, etc. But this just gives you a really nice way to quantify all of the activities that are occurring as you work through managing your quote, or your prospects, your leads, your accounts, and all of the sales opportunities that you run across. So everything that we did before this in creating that quote all would land here so that we can see that information included in the totals that show up on this window. So ultimately what we covered at first was basically just a lead or an opportunity, being able to prepare a quotation, and then being able to see a dashboard with the sales activity. The nice thing about using CRM is oftentimes in an organization, the accounting team's using their system, the sales team is using their system, and they're only sharing data through things like individual spreadsheets or manual reports and those types of things. Whereas with this type of application and an integration created between the two, you'll actually be able to share data and provide greater insight on both sides of the equation. So the next thing that we're going to cover is, okay, now we have that quote. So what happens to the quote, and who's managing that quote and turning that ultimately what we hope into an order? And so in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can do this, leveraging Dynamics GP as your base. So first of all, we're going to look again at Dynamics CRM. We now have a proposal that's sitting out there, or a quote sitting out there in CRM, and we have the ability to process that quotation. We're also going to introduce a tool called SalesPad, just as an alternative, and a tool that you can look at that will allow you to see how I have a mobile option to enter quotes and orders and invoices. And then obviously we'll look at Dynamics GP. And typically this information should flow directly into the sales order processing portion of Dynamics GP. So you saw the opportunity we had before, so there's really a couple different steps that we're going to go through. Once the client says, yes, we're going to move forward, we're going to buy those cords, we're going to engage with you on a consulting engagement, we're going to work with you, and we're going to accept this proposal. So the first thing you're going to do in CRM is you're going to actually close the opportunity. So the window we were looking at before where we had the opportunity, we then have the ability to close that opportunity. We have the ability to put in a reason. That reason could be won, it could be lost. What ends up being the actual revenue, so what did they ultimately sign off on? And as you know as well as I do, that oftentimes that may change over the course of the interaction. So what they may originally have expected they were going to purchase and what they ultimately end up purchasing could change. So the other thing that we can do then is assign it to a close date. What's nice about this is then that information is going to be sitting in CRM so we can track our won-loss ratios. We have the ability to see all of our won opportunities over a period of time, etc. So it then lends itself to additional reporting capabilities within the CRM solution. Another thing that you can do, and we didn't really look at this when we were setting up the opportunity, is you have the ability to assign competitors. So if you know that you're competing with X, Y, and Z, you can include those, and then again, getting even greater information from your system, you can then have the ability to say, we won or we lost versus these competitors. All right. The next thing you can do is you can take a quote, and rather than rekeying that into GP as an order, we can create an order in Dynamics CRM. So in this example, we could use the quote to create the order. The status is 1, the won date is this date, and you can close the opportunity, and ultimately then you're going to be able to then take the contents of the quotation that you had set up in CRM, and you're going to turn that into an order inside of CRM. So now what you're going to see is what was an order for a total of 20 cables for $1,200, you're now going to see that turned into an order. And so in this example, this is for Alcoa. We have an order for phone cords for $1,200. Okay, so all of the information you need is all right here. So an alternative to that is a tool called SalesPad. I'm going to focus this portion of our discussion around the tool called SalesPad Mobile, which is a mobile solution. And just to give you an idea that CRM is one great way, and we really are big advocates, and we have a great team that's focused on the CRM solution. And so SalesPad Mobile is more for those opportunities where you may be actually visiting with a customer, and you would actually like to place an order from on site, or they've called you at your home office, or you're traveling, and you have the ability to enter an order on the fly. So you can see that this is actually taken a screenshot from my iPad. And so this is the login window, and you can see here that it's going to ask you for a name and it's going to ask you for a password. I happen to be just using their demo environment here, so you can see I'm logging in as demo with a password. Once I log in to SalesPad Mobile, then I can see contacts, customers, inventory, sales documents, so I can go back and look at other sales documents. I can look at what's called the sales monitor that will show me, and I'm going to show you this in a little while. The sales monitor actually allows you to see where your transactions are in their process and a total overall picture. So from there, I have the ability to pick a customer. In this case, I picked a different customer called Aaron Fitz Electrical, and I actually am able to create a quotation here. So you can see that I have a quotation for a black phone cord, and it's going to be purchased by Aaron Fitz Electrical. It's going to be shipped to their office in Redmond, Washington. You can see then it's a quotation transaction. You can see the dates, etc. And ultimately then I have the ability to add items. I can go back and pick recent items that they've asked for quotes or proposals for, and so forth. And so in this case I selected the phone cord. Ultimately, I have the same functionality here in the ability to turn this into an invoice if I need to, or I'm sorry, an order. And the reason I'm showing you both of these options is because they both then have the ability to drop that data, that order information, directly into your Dynamics GP system so that they can be processed and fulfilled. So at this point, what you have is the order for that phone cord. Cheryl, I'm about 20 minutes in. Are there any questions so far?
Let's take a look. Nope, there aren't any questions right now, Jeff.
Okay, very good. So I'll keep moving on. So ultimately, whether I'm using CRM or whether I happen to be using SalesPad, ultimately what's happening is when I create those orders are going to drop directly into Dynamics GP. And many of you who are using GP may be very familiar with this window, which is the order entry window inside of GP. So this order is a replica of the order that my sales team had entered inside of the CRM solution. And then once they closed it, then it will automatically push right over into GP. Now, that brings up the issue of how does it get here. So there are a number of different tools that are available to allow you to take sales data out of CRM and drop it into GP. One of the common tools that we use is a tool called Scribe, which is an integration tool. There's another one called Smart Connect. In the past, there has also been a tool from Microsoft that is a GP connector with CRM. And just so everyone knows, moving forward, that product has actually been discontinued. So you will have the choices of different integration tools. We typically would recommend either Scribe or Smart Connect, depending on your circumstances, and that's something that you certainly want to talk over with your consulting team members. So ultimately then, we now have an order that is sitting inside of Dynamics GP for 10 each of the 2 different phone cords that we had defined in CRM. All right, so now, not everyone is going to use SalesPad. Not everyone is going to use CRM, and we understand that. So the purpose of today was simply to let you know what your options are. CRM is commonly used in sales teams, whether it be a small team or a larger team. Then SalesPad is used in a variety of different places as well. So both of those products work very well. Socius has great experience with both of them and can certainly help you determine whether they're a good fit for your organization. So the next direction we want to go is what we'd like to do is talk about, okay, now once it's an order, what are we going to do? And so there are a couple different paths we can take in regards to processing that order through the shipment process, and then ultimately taking that order and turning it into an invoice to the customer. So what we're going to look at here is we're going to look at a couple different options. We're going to look at Dynamics GP, and we're going to look at a tool called SalesPad. So SalesPad is a great tool for streamlining the sales order process. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a window here inside of SalesPad. Now remember, we were looking at SalesPad just a moment ago, and I referred to it as SalesPad Mobile. SalesPad Mobile is available as an option for those of you that are using either iOS operating systems such as an iPad. It's also available if you're using an Android. But ultimately what it'll let you do is it'll allow you to enter transactions and process orders mobily and ultimately feed that information into GP sales order processing. Now this SalesPad is more of a enhancement to the Dynamics GP sales order processing window. So there's a number of things that I want to point out to you. So the first thing I did was I did a customer search, and you'll notice there's a tab on the top, and I selected customer search, and I brought up my Alcoa customer. What you're going to notice is that all of my customer information, like payment terms and all of that information, can populate here. We got address information for both our primary address and then our ship to address. And then there's some other visibility that is provided inside the system as well. So what you're going to notice over here is all of our open sales documents that exist with this particular customer. So you can see that I have a number of different orders that are sitting out inside of GP for this Alcoa company. And so then down at the bottom, then we have historical information as well. So you can see, and in this case I have just one, but I have an invoice 2342 that was processed on 4/12 and for $39.90. So we have the ability to actually, on this customer lookup window, have access to their open sales documents and their historical sales documents, and I have the ability to drill into any of these. So I can go back and look at the open transactions, or I can go back and look at my historical transactions. The next thing you'll notice is that I have tabs across here. So one of the things that is really great about SalesPad and how it enhances GP is it gives us in one window access to all this additional information. So it gives us access to addresses, we can attach notes, we can see all of the customer's open AR right from this window. We can look at item history, so what have they purchased from us in the past. We can see their sales documents, and that happens to be the historical information you have here. We even have the ability to create sales graphs and so forth. So there's a number of different tabs here that gives us greater visibility into this particular customer and their activity with us from a order and invoice perspective. You'll also notice that I have from this window the ability to select a quote, an order, or an invoice. So I do have the ability right here without CRM to enter a quote, an order, or an invoice. However, oftentimes you're going to make a decision on whether you're measuring your opportunities through CRM or whether you decide to use something like SalesPad. We feel that if you're really trying to get a great picture of all of that sales activity, you're going to get a better view using the dynamic CRM solution. And so a lot of times entering quotes through that will ultimately be more streamlined. Orders can then flow using the Scribe or Smart Connect tool, and then we can process the order from there. So then ultimately then, what we have now is we have entered an order. So this order is the order that actually came across from CRM, and it dropped into GP, and then SalesPad gives us a view of that particular order right here. There's a couple things I wanted to point out in why you might use SalesPad. Number one, the system actually will track your totals for a particular invoice, so you can always see the gross margin. So you can see your margin and your dollar margin from each particular transaction that you enter. This one's not realistic because I have a $1,200 invoice and I'm making $1,090, but the idea would be that as you process these orders, you're going to know what your margin's going to be at any time that you've added new line items onto it. So the other thing that's important is we have the sales monitor that we were talking about. And so you notice that transaction that we were looking at before was a pending order. And so each of these individual statuses, we can see all of the orders as they're sitting as a pending order, a ready to pick order, a shipped order. And so it really allows you to get a really good picture of all of the activity that's going on in your business. And so you'll notice that that particular transaction was set up as ready to pick. And down here you'll notice there's my Alcoa transaction for $1,200. Okay, my gross margin's $1,090. Okay, so all of these different statuses can be set up so that you can track a transaction all the way through your process. And so this sales monitor really gives you an idea of what you have in your system and how many items are ready to pick, how many items are ready to pack, how many items are ready to ship, etc. And it's all in one dashboard.
Can we pause for a quick question, Jeff?
Sure.
Can SalesPad handle multiple ship-to addresses?
On a single order?
I'm not sure, assuming maybe.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, that wasn't fair to you, Cheryl.
Sorry, she said no.
Oh, yes. So SalesPad uses the customer data that exists inside of GP. So if you set up a customer and they have multiple ship-to addresses, on each order you can select the ship-to address that's appropriate. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Jeff.
So you're welcome. Thank you, Cheryl. One of the things that we talked about was greater visibility into your customer and your order and your item information through SalesPad. Using GP that resides in, using GP as your database, this just surfaces it in a nice way. So, and you also may remember that I just showed you a screen that showed you all the orders that were in different statuses. So really this all builds off of a functionality that we'll call workflow. So what we have here is we have the ability to define workflow. And so we can create a workflow queue and process an order through each of these individual steps. So as an example, when a sales order is first entered or integrated inside of GP, it may be a pending order. And once it's released to be fulfilled, it will move to a batch in sales order processing called ready to pick. And so then as we were looking back before, you'll notice here that we have a batch called ready to pick, and this will show you all those transactions. They start off as pending, they go to ready to pick, etc. So just to put that in perspective of where that's coming from. So then you may have certain things that you do as you receive orders inside of GP. So you may do some of these manually, and this just gives you a better way of tracking them. You may review OpenAR before you process that order. You may review the margin on the order, and you'll notice earlier that I mentioned that we can surface that margin immediately as we enter line items on a sales order. You may have a process to, if an item's not in stock, and you may have it go into a batch called waiting for project. You also may fulfill that. It'll move that back to ready to pick. So once the items are in stock, it moves back to ready to pick. Once you've processed then picked it, then you can have the transaction move into shipping and then shipped. At the point that it's, in this example, at the point that it goes through the shipped process, it will immediately turn that order into an invoice. So now, just like in GP, an order can actually turn into multiple invoices if there are different releases of different line items on the order. So that doesn't really change, and SalesPad does follow the Dynamics GP rules. So when I get to the point, then I have the ability to print documents. So if I have an order, you'll notice here that I can print a picking ticket or a packing slip, and I can do the very same thing inside of GP. So SalesPad really streamlines the process, but understand it's not required to process orders through GP. So you can use the sales order processing module to do the same thing. It's maybe not quite as streamlined. So then once you have the orders and you've picked them and packed them, then it may move into a different queue called shipping. And then at that point you have the ability to continue and push this right through the workflow. So at this point I can move on, and then the transaction is then ready to invoice. And here you can see that we have the shipped quantity. So once we've shipped it, then it becomes an invoice. So this invoice is a result of us processing the invoice through the fulfillment process, and now it has a status of shipped. Now, your process may be simpler with fewer steps. It may be more advanced than that. But the nice thing is it's a natural flow as you process your orders. And so it can handle high volumes of transactions or low volumes of transactions any way you'd like to do it. But ultimately, once that order has been shipped and turned into an invoice, then voila, here it exists as your invoice for $1,200 in Dynamics GP. So again, SalesPad is acting as a front-end workflow tool that gives you greater visibility into your data, but ultimately all of the data that it's using resides inside of GP. And so in this example, what we decided is if my sales team needs greater visibility into the system, to know when their orders that they've run through CRM have been shipped, then we actually can send information back using integration tools right back into CRM so that you can actually see those orders sitting inside of sitting inside of CRM. This gives your sales team greater visibility of the activity once it left CRM and it went through into accounting. And as we talk about that, other things that we have the ability to do is we have the ability to also allow the salespeople in CRM to inquire into Dynamics GP data for such things as what is the customer's outstanding balance, what's their aging look like. All of that kind of stuff can be surfaced inside of CRM so that the sales team can be working in CRM and working through their sales processes, but then also have visibility into the customer activity once the order has been placed. And oftentimes, that's very, very important. I'll give you an example. A lot of times with commission programs, sales team members may not get paid until the customer pays. So it'd be nice for them to know what open invoices are still outstanding and how old they are. So keep that in mind as you think about how these things all can work together. All right. So I'm going to move on, unless there's some questions. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So now what we've done so far is we've worked in CRM, we've created transactions to turn a lead into an opportunity, we've processed the opportunity to create a quote, we've turned the quote into an order, we've processed the order through the system using workflow through SalesPad, and ultimately fulfilled that order and turned it into an invoice. So some of the other things that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're managing the invoicing process properly, and also we're able to make sure that we're managing our collection process. And so this is where I'm headed next. So the tools I'm going to use here are Dynamics GP, as we always are, and then a module called Collections Management. So Collections Management allows you inside of GP to manage the process that you go through in communicating with your clients and customers, in making sure that they're paying on time, or if they're not paying on time, that you're following up with them to get that get those payments made. So you may have, in fact, many of the organizations we work with actually have people that just do collections, and so this tool is actually is inside the GP. This window that you're looking at actually surfaces data about a particular customer's activity. So for those of you using GP, you probably are familiar with looking at the agings and being able to see what's current, 30, 60, 90. In my sample data, I actually have up over 180 days of different aging buckets. So a couple things to keep in mind here. When I bring up this window, I can bring up a customer. I see all of their pertinent information about contact information, payment terms, etc. I also then have the ability to see a few things that can be very pertinent to my decisions in regards to collections. For instance, what is my year-to-date sales? Are there any unposted sales that exist in GP right now? Are there any unposted cash receipts that are in GP right now but not posted? And are there any orders sitting in GP, whether they have been dropped in from CRM or SalesPad, or just entered directly into GP? And then you'll notice that we can assign a credit manager to each customer. In my case, I'm the guy. Over here on the right, you'll notice that we have the aging periods, and there's an additional one down below that leads to a overall balance of $78,217.39. A couple other things that you can define at the customer level are the credit limit. So you can see here that their credit limit is $100,000. You can see who the salesperson is, and again, that ties back to, is the salesperson responsible for the collection activity to make sure that the customer pays their bill on time, and that can affect their commissions. Also, you'll notice a couple key fields here. One of them is called Collection Plan ID. We have the ability to assign different methods for following up with clients through a collection plan that I'll show you here in a minute. And it might be, what are the steps that I go through to make sure that a customer is paying us on time? The other thing that you'll notice here is we have $78,217.39, but my real total outstanding is higher than that. And you're saying, well, how could that be? But it really is, you take the $78,000, you add the $24,000, you select the you subtract the $5,000 and the $2,800, and therefore you end up with $105. So this is really nice because it gives you real good perspective of not only what has been invoiced and hasn't been paid, but also what hasn't been posted yet, so that you know everything that has happened with this particular customer. Down below, what you have is you have information that is about the correspondence that you may have in regards to collection activities. So you can see here that I have several different lines and different amounts. And so I'm going to detail that out here in just a minute. So then what we have the ability to do is we have the ability on one or more documents, we have the ability to come in and assign activities to them. So in this case, we have a promise to pay for this particular invoice for $5,800, and it was due years ago. And so you can put notes in here as well saying, hey, Bob promised to pay this invoice on this Friday's check run, those types of things. And so then assign an action, and these action IDs can be assigned by you, but then you can track your collections by status as well. So next what we have is then I wanted to show you the collection plan and give you an example here. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to set up a number of steps that go into the collections process. So what we have is the days that are overdue and what action we follow. And again, you may remember on a screen prior I had a high risk action ID. A high risk collection plan. I may have a low risk. I may have a high volume customer that I give them a little slack because they do lots of business with us, etc. So what happens in this example is I have an action assigned 20 days before. I might send out a letter that just reminds them that they have X number of invoices that are outstanding. Once it's 10 days overdue, I might send them a follow-up letter that is, hey, these are past due, etc. After 30 days, I may make a call. After 40 days, I may also then go in and send them another letter, etc., etc. So you can have these different plans, assign them to different customers, and then your follow-up can create almost like a collector's to-do list each day on who you need to follow up with that day based upon open invoices. So what I wanted to do is just highlight one of these. You'll notice at the 40-day mark we have an aging 3, and that is there's a letter ID assigned to this, so I'm going to show you that in just a second. So all of these steps can be calls or letters or whatever it is. So what I'm going to do is show you then aging 3 is a letter, and it could be also sent in an email. And so basically what this allows you to do is it allows you to assign the content of that email. So thank you for your business. Your account now has documents greatly past due. Please see the following aging of documents, and it'll show you each of those documents. But the content of this can be completely broken down and sent out in an email or in a letter. You have some options around whether there's a Word document that's set up. You can format your collection letters in Word documents. You can say invoices to attach to email. You can say that it will actually send copies of the invoices to go along with the letter so they actually have the copy. So how many times have you, when you're doing collections, have you run into a customer saying, well, I don't think I have a copy of that? This really addresses that issue completely. The other thing that you can do is the collections management module allows you to print an aging report, but it also allows you to include all of the aging notes that you may have attached. So it's not your traditional aging, it's more of a current aging that shows you all of the aging periods, and it then shows you any notes that are attached to any of the invoices that you're following up with on a collection basis. And so that report can look something like this, and I highlighted with a red box some of the extra information that might show up on the collection with aging notes or with collection notes. So you can see, you may remember, I'll go back a few screens. Here's my action item for $7,077.03. So now that information can show up here. So you can see the breakdown of the invoices that make up that $7,000, and you can see what day they were due, and you can also see the notes that said Bob has promised to pay these 3 invoices this Friday as part of his normal weekly check run. So collections can really provide you with a lot of additional information, allow you to automate the process of sending collection letters or emails or follow-ups, and certainly, if nothing else, provide you with a to-do list of things for your collectors to do to make sure that they're staying on top of all of it. All right. So again, now we've gone through everything from opportunities to quotes to orders to invoices, and then we've talked about the managing of the open receivables and the collections process. So the last area that I wanted to really spend some time on was reporting. So before I do that, Cheryl, are there any additional questions so far?
Yeah, there's one question. What are the options for invoice delivery? For example, print, email, fax?
We really, the only way you can fax is if you have a fax printer driver. So that might be an option for you. And we'd have to look into a little bit more detail about how you're configured and what you have there. Because I know that there are times where, while we don't fax as much as we used to, there are still needs for fax delivery. Any others, Cheryl?
That's all. Thanks.
Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about reporting. So I wanted to start off, I really have a couple tools in particular that I think are nice. Now, first of all and foremost, I'd like to say you absolutely have the ability to use smart lists in GP, and many of you already do that. So by no means am I discouraging you at all to not use that tool. One of the things that I have found to be very useful, though, is a tool called Smart View, which is kind of a smart list on steroids. It's by a company called E1. There's a couple things I want to show you that it does automatically out of the box. So first of all, it allows you to subtotal. The second thing it allows you to do is it allows you to select all of your fields right here on the side, so I can simply checkbox the fields that I'd like to show on the document or on the smart list. And third of all, it allows you to create a pecking order or a sorting order. So I am sorting this by customer and then by invoice. So you'll notice up here we have Adam Park. Adam Park has 1 back order, has 6 fulfillment orders, has how many invoices, etc. So you can see that this is just one example where I can break out the transaction types. This could have been as simple as I want to see a particular customer and I want to see a particular document type that is order. So I can see all the open orders out there. So you can pick and choose, and you can subtotal automatically. You can easily select additional, and it also allows you, it has the same look and feel from this side as what you have inside a smart list. The other thing is and where a lot of people like it, is there are two different versions of it. One is internal to GP. The other one can actually be launched from your desktop and doesn't require a GP user. So Smart View actually can be a low-cost smart list option for someone not using GP. So it might be something that you want to look into. The other thing, and lastly, it is faster than Smart List. So it does its inquiries more efficiently and absolutely allows you to get to that data more quickly. All right, so obviously smart lists have been a part of most of our lives of people who use GP. So this is just more like an enhanced smart list option for you if that's something you think would be useful. And I think the big driver can be the external version for users that aren't inside of GP. All right. So the next thing I wanted to spend some time on then was what's called Power BI. And if you've worked with Socius for a while, you've probably heard of Power BI from our communications before. Power BI is a tool from Microsoft. It's cloud-based. There's also a desktop version. But the idea is it is a dashboarding tool that does a fabulous job of allowing us to surface data in a variety of different ways. And in my examples today, I'm talking specifically about sales. But the idea is that it is an interactive tool. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by interactive. You'll notice over here I have what I'd call a slicer. So I can pick and choose right on the dashboard and say I'd rather see 2016 data. Over here I have what I call a donut. I don't know exactly what the official term is for that graphic, but I can actually click on one of these different segments of the donut that represent each of my sales team. And if I do that, then all of the data on this graphic will redraw. So then I'll just see, in this case, if I click on Sandra M, I'll see Sandra's individual customers. I will see her total sales versus last year. I will see her customers highlighted in this view. And so it's just an easy way for us to visualize data. The other thing that's very exciting about it is that it doesn't require GP. So in the next release of GP, there will be a version that will allow you to embed these graphics in your homepage on GP. But this can be made available on a tablet, a laptop. It can be on your iPad or Android device. It is cross-platform. And for people who are traveling that really are more consumers of data than contributors to it, in other words, they don't enter the data, but they need to know the data, this ends up being a fabulous tool for that. This is just another view, and I thought this might be nice from the perspective of we have a map view. This actually ends up being a great tool because what it allows us to do is it allows us to look at our data and really put it in perspective. A lot of times people like to look at sales by territory. And so you'll notice here that I have the whole world as a territory, but if I were to select Illinois and Missouri as an example, then it would just show me that portion of the country, and it would show me all the zip codes where where there are purchases and the amounts. I can pick, again, I have lots of slicers here. I have territory, I have year, in this case, I have inventory involved, so I can pick my warehouse. And then I can throw in some user-defined segmentation as well. So as an example, is my business seasonal, and would I like to see this data on a seasonal basis? So if I pick spring, it can redraw all these graphics to look the way that I'm expecting it to. And then here's some more options as well. So you can see sales by customers, sales year over year, again, more slicers, more different views. Socius actually has released what we call Socius Analytics. And this is a cloud tool, and we actually provide these tools for no charge for the first 90 days, so you can try them out. with our default look and feel. Obviously, if there's more customization that needs to be done, we can train you, but we can also do and create some of these more advanced dashboards for you as well. All right. So I'm going to close up, and then maybe we have a couple minutes for some questions. My purpose today was really to give you a look at some options. Not to say that you need all of these, but just looking for ways that we can make your sales process more effective. So we started off with Dynamic CRM, a great way to track all of your sales activity, from lead to opportunity to order. We looked at SalesPad as a way to enhance what you're doing with GP sales order processing. We looked at sales order processing. We talked about receivables, and then we talked about collections management and how that works in conjunction with receivables management. We closed up on reporting. We talked about E1, Smart View tool, and then also the Microsoft Power BI. So hopefully what we've given to you is ways of more effectively processing your data, and then more effective ways of viewing and analyzing your data so that you can make faster and better decisions. Our hope is, and then what you should expect at the end of this is, we should eliminate redundancy. So sales team can enter an order or a quote, then turn it into an order. The order can be passed over to the accounting system with only one keying. That then improves your data integrity because it's not rekeyed. It's not like you're putting stuff in Excel, etc. You're going to have greater visibility, and we saw that in a number of different ways, whether that by using the sales monitor inside of SalesPad, whether that be using the Smart View or Power BI. Also, it allows us to really knock down some business silos, because now we're actually all cooperating and working together to, whether that be our sales team, whether that be our accounting team, whether that be our distribution team who's delivering the product, and it provides controls and security. So whether it be security set up in GP, in SalesPad, whether it be isolating what data is available to who in our reporting tools, we have the ability to make sure that it's all secure. So with that, last thing I wanted to just mention was we're always open to conversations with you to talk about how this can work in conjunction with a cloud environment. Many of you are on-premise, but we also can provide GP and SalesPad in the cloud, CRM in the cloud, and working in conjunction with Office 365. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Cheryl. She's going to share a little bit of information, and then if you have a few questions, I'll be around to answer those.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. And to remind everyone, you can either type your question into the box or raise your hand and we'll unmute your line and you can ask Jeff directly. Just a couple of additional things wanted to cover as people are submitting. Our next GP webinar is on September 22nd from 1 to 2 Eastern. It's on streamlining your procurement process using GP. The GP User Group Summit is coming up October 11th through 14th in Tampa. We know a lot of you are attending. If you haven't already told us or your account manager, please let us know if you plan on attending. We do have a 10% off registration code, and we're doing a pretty large client dinner. So we'd like to send you an invitation to that if you do know that you're attending. We have a few promotions we're running right now. $1,000 off Smart Connect through September 30. First 3 months of hosting charges free through December 16th with K-Commerce, and 20% off Rockton software through October 31st. Jeff, if you want to move to the next screen, we have his direct contact information. If you do think of any questions afterwards, you can either call him, his line is his direct line there, or his email address. And it looks like we don't have any questions at this time. So So we're going to go ahead and close out. Thanks everyone for attending and have a good rest of your day.